displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies. On behalf of our entire team at SpaceX, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Endeavour today for its next trip to the International Space Station. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We'd like to thank all the trainers, technicians, engineers, decision makers, and planners who have defined our mission ahead and trained us and given the faith in us to execute that mission. And Crew 6 is ready to launch.
Those words coming from the Crew 6 inside the Dragon right now, under 9 minutes from launch. Those final instructions meaning we are in terminal count. Falcon 9 launch commit criteria is getting checked by the computers. And we're in the final stretch here, inside 10 minutes until liftoff. Kate was mentioning a series of number and letter combinations that you'll hear upon ascent once we get to that point. That'll be those different abort modes that we'll be tracking throughout the ascent. There's an Alpha and Bravo on the first stage, and there's 2A through 2E on the second stage as we track it up the eastern seaboard. Right now coming up on T-minus 8 minutes, the next major milestone that we'll be hearing will be about the engine chill.
That's right. That's a important step of the countdown. That's basically when at T-minus 7 minutes, we will open the pre-valves of the engines to allow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen into the Merlin turbo pumps prior to the full flow of LOX that occurs during ignition. Now, that's important because at this point in time, all the hardware is at ambient temperature. So by opening the pre-valves and flowing a little bit of that super chilled, densified liquid oxygen helps prepare the hardware for that colder temperature when the full flow of LOX occurs. We should hear that call out in about 10 seconds.
Engine chill.
And there's that call out indicating that those pre-valves have been opened, and now there's a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen flowing through the hardware, basically chilling it out prior to liftoff.
That's right. In the meantime, we're tracking fuel on the vehicle. Stage 2 RP1, or the fuel on the second stage, is complete. It's one of the earlier tanks to be completely filled in the countdown. But as we continue to track the fuel loading, the next thing will be the Stage 1 RP load. Complete. That's coming up here in about 15 seconds. Later in the countdown, we'll be tracking the tanks of oxidizer being completely filled.
That RP1 load is now complete on the first stage. So at this point in time, all RP1 is now on Falcon 9, both for the first and second stages. LOX load continues, wrapping up at about T-minus 3 minutes for first stage and T-minus 2 minutes for the second stage. Coming up, we'll hear the call for Dragon to...
Dragon SpaceX, for awareness, we are seeing a T-Tab load issue and are troubleshooting. We are currently still go, but have further evaluation before making a final decision. We'll get you a final read before T0.
And SpaceX Dragon comes.
That call out there just communicating to the crew that the launch teams are troubleshooting a small issue with T-Teb, and they will have some more information for the crew in the next couple of minutes. That T-Teb, as I mentioned earlier.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
And there's that call.
Tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
A lot of information coming through right now, just indicating that that Dragon is now on internal power, and now we are basically preparing to retract the strong back, which is the white structure there to the right of the rocket. We will see the clamps open just under those clamps, just under the Dragon trunk. Those will begin to open, and the strong back will retract away from the vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see those clamps on the top of the structure there, just under the Dragon's trunk, which you can identify by the black solar panels on the left of the base of the capsule itself and to the right. And then the structure itself will lean about 2 degrees, and then it will retract the rest of the way once Dragon actually hits that T0 mark and lifts off. We're seeing those clamps being undone now. The 2-degree lean will be very subtle, and then you'll see it more when we hit that T0 mark.
That's right. At liftoff, Falcon 9 will, or excuse me, the TE will actually retract to 45 degrees to clear the way for Falcon 9. That TE is basically what has the umbilicals that attach to the vehicle that provide power, telemetry, and fluids prior to liftoff.
Now coming up in 10 seconds, we'll be listening for a call on stage 1 liquid oxygen load being complete.
Dragon is in terminal count and on internal power.
About 2 minutes, 30
This is
seconds.
the LD on countdown 1. Hold, hold, hold. We are standing down due to a T-tab ground issue.
As you just heard, we have.
Support has started.
As you just heard, we have a hold tonight due to the T-tab issue that I mentioned prior, and the
Dragon SpaceX with that call from LD. You are go to step into 5.100 launch scrub.
5.100 launch scrub. That's in work.
as with everything else, we are prepared for all scenarios, including, unfortunately, as we've seen tonight, a scrub. So the teams are now stepping into those procedures.
That's right. Again, it was the teams were tracking a ground issue with TTEB. That's the ignition fluid that actually sparks with the oxidizer and allows the engines to fire. The teams were tracking this issue. And so we're in a nominal scrub configuration. We'll start to see sort of a sequence of reversing some of the milestones we've been tracking as part of this countdown until the crew access arm swings back to the side hatch. And so the crew can egress the vehicle as part of a nominal launch scrub.
So for those of you just joining at about just under T minus 2.5 minutes, we unfortunately had a scrub due to a TTEB issue with the ground systems. So as Gary mentioned, we are in a nominal scrub configuration. There we have our procedures now being enacted to basically reverse all the progress that we made this evening, including propellant offload and bringing that crew access arm back into position and getting the astronauts out. Up until that point, everything was looking good. The ground team had reported that issue. I believe it was around T-minus 5 minutes. At this point in time, the launch escape system is still armed, with the crew continuing to look comfortable there inside Dragon Endeavour.
And Dragon, LD on countdown 1. At this time, our offloads are underway. Vehicle is safe and proceeding nominally with offload. Expecting about a 50-minute offload.
SpaceX Dragon copies about a 50-minute offload. And we'll be sitting here waiting. Thanks.
So it will be a very methodical process to offload the Falcon 9 with the propellant and oxidizer. You can see some of that oxygen billowing off still. That'll be part of the sequence. They've also re-enabled auxiliary power by umbilical to the Dragon as they work their way through the nominal scrub timeline. Again, that's a 50-minute offload. For those, again, that are joining, we are in a scrub situation just under 2 minutes and 30 seconds from launch. Teams declared a scrub due to tracking a ground issue with TTEB. This is the ignition fluid that's used for the first and second stages that ignites the oxidizer for igniting the engines themselves to lift Dragon and into space. They were tracking this issue and declared a scrub again at the 2-minute 30-second mark. So we're going through a nominal scrub with a 50-minute fuel offload. You can see the strong back clamps have been re-enabled in this view right here. After we offload prop, we'll see the crew access arm swing back to get the crew out. In the meantime, the launch escape system, which enables the Super Dracos to fire should there be any anomaly with the Falcon 9 during the offload procedure. The crew does have the ability to perform a pad abort. Right now, the ground teams are tracking no issues, everything going according to plan for a nominal scrub. All right, for those who are just joining, as a reminder, we are in a scrub at just under 2 minutes, 30 seconds from launch. The ground teams declared a scrub as they were tracking a ground issue with the TTEB ignition fluid. And as a precaution, made a scrub for today's launch as we were counting down to T0. Now we're working our way through nominal scrub procedures, which include offloading the fuel and oxidizer that are loaded on the Falcon 9 right now. You can see we made our way through the countdown to a strong back retract that has been put back into place, and the clamps just under the trunk of Dragon are now their configuration that they were prior to that part of the countdown. And Kate, we're making our way through offloading that Falcon 9.
That's right. In total, that prop offload is expected to take 50 minutes, 50. So unfortunately, at this point in time, there's not a whole lot that the crew there can do except patiently wait. I could imagine that they might be a little sad as of because otherwise they would be in space at this point, effectively. But right now, as you can see, they are just sitting back and relaxing as the Falcon 9 teams on the ground continue to keep them updated. As Gary said, this is a nominal scrub procedure or configuration. We have procedures listing out every step of this. So right now we are basically unfueling Falcon 9 from both the first and second stages, as Falcon 9 was nearly fully loaded at the time of the scrub. So as this continues, we will see some puffs of white clouds like you just saw there live, as that detanking effectively is underway. We will also see the crew access arm go back into the service position. That will enable the basically the pad team to re-enter the pad, go back up, and help the 4 astronauts that are currently there in the capsule basically unbuckle and get out of the capsule and make their way back down to the ground.
And it is going to be a methodical process, like you said, Kate. Through the fueling that began at T-minus 35 minutes, we made our way quite a bit through the timeline, and those tanks were pretty full. So the ground teams estimated a 50-minute offload of that fuel. In the meantime, the Crew 6 astronauts are in a passive state. They'll be tracking the fuel offloading process and listening to the communications from the ground teams, giving them status updates along the way. But we are in a nominal configuration. In the meantime, they've taken the Dragon Falcon 9 off of internal power and re-enabled auxiliary power back into the vehicle as they continue to go through this process. And like you said, Kate, it'll be a little bit, and then we'll see that crew access arm swing back, and they'll re-access the side hatch. If you were following along on our coverage, they walk down the crew access arm and enter the Dragon through that side hatch. They'll be exiting the same way. In the meantime, through this whole process, the crew and the Dragon itself will remain with the LES, the launch escape system, armed. So if in any event something were to happen as part of the offloading process, they'll be able to escape using the Super Draco engines, the 8 Super Dracos that are on the Dragon. It'll be a pad abort over into the Atlantic Ocean. But for now, all the ground teams are tracking that everything is nominal. The fuel offload is going as planned as part of a normal scrub, and we're just continuing to follow along.
That's right. And one thing I want to mention, although this is not what we had hoped to happen today, and while we said that this is a nominal abort configuration, technically the crew and the launch teams have already practiced this very similar scenario. On Thursday, February 23rd, the integrated launch operations teams, along with the astronauts, performed a full dry dress rehearsal, which basically means a total dress rehearsal, including suit up, transporting to the pad, going up the elevators in the crew tower, down the crew access arm, and ingressing into the capsule, and basically doing a full rehearsal of launch day as if it were real, but no propellant involved. So that's why it's called a dry dress rehearsal, because there was no propellant involved. So technically, this is very similar to what they would have done on Thursday in terms of simulating that scrub and basically having the teams go back up into the crew tower and retrieve the astronauts from the capsule. So at this point in time, we are following along with the procedures for this unfortunate scrub, but everything continues to track nominally for this activity. Right now, for those that have recently joined, we had a hold called on the countdown at about T-minus 2.5 minutes. The crew had reported around T-minus 5 minutes, or excuse me, the ground teams the SpaceX ground teams had reported around T-minus 5 minutes, an issue with the TTEB, which is the